This is the second video for the 13th class of Social Psychological Perspectives on Health. In the first video, I talked about I thought revisited how belonging to groups is important for our health, and then I introduced one of the studies showing how belonging to groups can help residents in care home to improve their well-being or their memory performance. And uh, so in this video, I will give more details about what kind of interventions can be done to help people belong to groups and improve their well-being. So the social identity approach to managing social disconnection, origins, and theoretical underpinnings of groups for health. So various studies conducted to help vulnerable older adults were reviewed, and most of the studies were reviewed in chapter 7. So if you are interested in how some interventions uh, good for older adults, maybe you want to refer to chapter 7. And so the contents of interventions do not matter, but the increased sense of connectedness and belonging derived from engagement in meaningful group activity produced health effects. So it doesn't really matter what you do in interventions, but interventions that help you feel connected and belonging would help you to gain health effects. So creation and strengthening of social identification are critical to cognitive health, mental health, and well-being. So here is another study showing how it is important, how social identification is important for older adults to improve their well-being. So that the research done by Greaves and his colleagues. The title of the paper was the No Country for Old Men, the role of a gentleman's club in promoting social engagement and psychological well-being in residential care. So they created gentlemen's club or ladies club for 12 weeks. And I think it's noteworthy that men are typically a somewhat disadvantaged minority group in this context. So in the residential care home, men usually have lower well-being, and then they tend to identify less with the care home compared to women. And so the researchers created a gentleman's or ladies club, and then let residents belong to respective groups. And at time one and time two, which is 12 weeks after time one, the researchers measured several key factors that they may be interested in. So first, social identity. As I said, women residents tend to do better at care homes. So at time one, their identification was already pretty high, and then at time two, there was no difference from time one. However, for men residents, the social identification was lower compared to women residents, and their social identification after 12 weeks actually increased from time one. And ACEL, this one is the Addenbrooke's cognitive examination revised, so which is basically the test for cognitive ability. And again, although there is a numerical increase from time one to time two for female participants, there was no significant differences. And for men residents, actually there was no increase for cognitive abilities. But for life satisfaction, for female participants, again, life satisfaction is pretty high for female at time one, so there was no difference at time one and time two. But At time one, men's life satisfaction was pretty low compared to women, and it increased to the point that is pretty comparable with female participants. For depression, again, for female participants, the depression level at time one was already low, and it even lowered at time two, but there was no significant difference. However, for male participants, again, the depression level was pretty high at time one, and it improved at time two. So maybe in a sense that, well, male participants were disadvantaged group, so their original score was maybe too high or too low, so that it gave some changes after 12 weeks. But I think it's notable that social identity increased, and with the increase of social identity, their life satisfaction and depression improved over 12 weeks. So I think this study sort of supports the idea that how social identification is important for older adults. So let's move on. So I think up to this point, I think it's kind of clear that social identification is important. So now you may want to ask what would be a barrier for people to develop social identification. So one of such barrier would be a lack of interest in activities of the group. So if you belong to a group, but if you are not interested in activities that group is engaged, then you may not be able to identify with such group. And also change in abilities or motivations. For example, if you are belonging to working groups, but when you get older, maybe you are no longer work as much as you used to be, then maybe your abilities change, and also your motivation may change, and thus you can no longer maintain high identification with the group. So this is a negative example, but also same thing could happen when things improve. For example, a mental health support group when individuals successfully manage the illness. So they join a group because of their mental health issue, but through joining a group, their mental health improved, and thus they may decide to leave the group, right? But because of the so they no longer need to stay in the group. That changes in motivation, and then they may no longer have strong identification with that group. So if groups no longer have purpose, function, or meaning, then it can be a friendship group, but it's not always easy. you know, if there are no purpose, function, or meaning in the groups, then people would have less meaning and motivation, and then also maybe less need to stay in a group, and thus they may just leave the group. So how can I say? One way to tackle such problem like changes in abilities and motivation is to belong to multiple groups. So life changes are common. There are a lot of changes in life. And when people experience them, they may decide or be forced to leave groups. And when such changes or challenges happen, if you belong to only one group, then the changes would be huge and you would just lose everything, like social identity, social support, meaning, and purpose in your life. But if you belong to many groups, then loss of one group would be the impact of losing one group would be relatively small if you belong to many groups compared to those who may belong to only one group, right? So belong to many groups so that you would still have some social support from other groups, meaning of life through other groups, right? So the advice here is that not to focus on any one group, but belong to many groups. And then, but it always comes with some note that you may want to belong as many as groups you want, but as long as they are compatible. if you belong to groups that are incompatible with your groups that you are already belonging, then it may cause different problems. Okay. And then here is some critiques of cognitive behavior therapy and interpersonal therapy. I already mentioned some of them in the first video, but cognitive behavior therapy aims to change cognitions. So they try to fix thinking styles individuals have, but it's not obviously very easy, right? And then cognitive behavior therapy encourage people to take actions. And then they encourage actions like any actions, but they don't think it needs to be social. But as you may be already aware from social identity approach, any action should be social so that people can gain memberships that which would be a psychological resource for them to gain social support or self-esteem or self-efficacy. Cognitive behavior therapy does not encourage people to connect to others, or even if they do, they consider connecting with others as a secondary aim. But obviously, from social identity approach, it should be the first aim. It should be the primary aim. So if individuals belong to groups, then they can get social support, they can get meaning, they can feel self-efficacy. So belonging to groups comes with a lot of psychological resources they can, you know, gain, they can rely on. And also, interpersonal therapy focuses on personal deficits that cause interpersonal conflicts. So basically, they try to provide social skills. They try to train people so that they can effectively communicate with others. But as we have seen through this course, good interpersonal relationships can be fostered within a group, not in a vacuum. So if you belong to a group and if you utilize social skills in a group, then maybe your social skills will improve a lot faster than when you just do it in a group of people whom you do not identify with. Right? So if you want to develop good social skills, then maybe you need to first join a group and identify with the group. And then when you choose a group that are compatible with your other groups. And then also choose a group that engage in activities you may be interested in, right? So with these things in mind, the authors of the textbook developed the Groups for Health program. Okay. This program is composed of 5 modules, and these aim to give people the knowledge and the skills to understand and manage their social identity resources effectively in the long term. So 5 modules are schooling, scoping, sourcing, scaffolding, and sustaining. So first one, schooling, raising awareness of the value of groups for health and of ways to harness this. And through providing the knowledge, it tries to empower people to take control of their health. And it is possible for everyone with group-based resources. So basically, they try to ask questions like, what are groups? How can groups help? And this is really what we have been doing in this course, right? So we learn what are groups and then we learned how groups can help us. So in this program, I mean the Groups for Health program, people are first provided with the knowledge that we have been learning in this course. And basically they meet once a week. So they first have a schooling week and the second week they have a scoping week, developing social maps to identify existing connections and areas for social growth. So I will show you later, but this is a social identity map. In the third week, that is a sourcing week, training skills to maintain and utilize existing networks and reconnect with valued groups. So this is basically social identity continuity pathway. So, you can see only half of it, but this is, I think we saw in chapter 5 or 8. So basically, questions that would be asked in this week would be, what do I get from my groups and what do I give to them? How groups can work for us and how we can work for groups. So these questions help participants explore strategies to reconnect with old networks or to manage incompatibility. So, you can ask, what can I get from my groups? And then if you feel that you are not really getting anything from your groups, maybe you want to think leaving the group, or if you are getting only problems and troubles from your groups, again, maybe the group is incompatible with other groups, so you may want to think about leaving the group. And another point that these questions, another important point of these questions is that not only what you can get from groups, but it also asks what you can give for the groups, right? So if you are not really giving anything to the group, then maybe you are not really identifying with the group, or you're not really continue contributing to your group. So, by contributing to groups, you can actually reconnect with the group. So if you are only getting from groups, then maybe you are not well connected with the group. But if you are both giving and getting from groups, then it is a sign of good connections you have with the group. Okay. Fourth week, scaffolding, using the group as a platform for new social connections and to train effective engagement. So this is a social identity gain pathway. What you can also remember, bridging capital. So you can use your current groups to expand your group memberships. So you may ask questions like, are my groups a good reflection of who I am? Or what may get in the way of me joining new groups? So when you think about joining your group, as I said, it would be good to join a group that have activities you may be interested in, right? So you may want to think what kind of person you are, and then you may want to join groups that you already have some interest, or that may be in line with your personality or character of yourself. And also you can here think about what kind of problems you have for joining groups, and then how you or others can help you to solve the problem so that you can join a group. Last module, sustaining, reinforcing key messages and troubleshooting. And this one is held 1 month later as a booster session. So, first week, second week, third week, fourth week, and after 1 month, this one comes. Okay. So between 1 month from the last session to the final session, you may try to think about joining new groups or reaching out all the connections you already have. And then in the final session, you will talk what kind of problems you had, and then how you or others can help you to sort out some of the problems. So yeah, this is, on the right, yeah, here. This is an example of social identity map. So basically, you first try to write down groups that you belong to, and then you may want to say how important each group is, and then you may want to also indicate how compatible each group is, like in terms of values and norms that each group has, or maybe even in terms of time schedule that they may have to meet. And then light figure indicates the social identity, social identity model of life change. I guess it was a name, but anyway, that So this model indicates, oops, this model in the upper path is a gain pathway and the lower path is a continuity pathway. And then we have learned that both pathways are important for improving and maintaining good well-being. So, to summarize again, schooling is to enhance knowledge of the contribution that groups make to health. Scoping is to raise awareness of existing group networks. So you may create a social identity map. Like you want to ponder what kind of groups you have already. And sourcing is to identify networks that are important to maintain and strengthen health grants. So after creating a map, you want to think which group is important and then which group you need to work on so that you can even strengthen your identification with the group. Scaffolding is to build new social identities. So, to have high or good well-being, not just keep maintaining your social groups is not enough. You may always, not maybe not so always, but you may want to expand your group memberships. And sustaining to review attempts to build and maintain group memberships in the context of the program. So here you want to review what you have done to improve your group status, like not like high or low, but how well you are connecting with groups and how well you have been joining new groups. And then try to see what kind of problems you may have, and then maybe you also can share what kind of strategies may have worked for you. Okay, so there is the explanation of the program, and then you want to ask, is groups for health is really effective? How or why is it effective, right? And the authors argue that it would be effective if it improves health and well-being, if it strengthens a sense of social identification, and thus help people realize the power of their social identities and help people develop the skills to maintain, strengthen, and create new social identities. And if it is feasible and acceptable and relevant to participants and the facilitators. So any good groups cannot be good if it's too hard to implement or if it's not enjoyable for participants, right? So they will look at retention rates and enjoyment. So this is actual paper that they examined how groups for health intervention or the program is effective. The participants were university students, and there were three time points. Time one, before the commencement of groups for health. Time two, right after the final module of groups for health, approximately 2 months after the first module. And time three, the 6 months follow-up. Okay. Yeah, so as I said, first four modules would be met weekly. And then the final fifth module would uh, happen 1 month after the fourth module. So from the first to the final modules, there will be 2 months. Okay. So here is the result. Blue bar indicates the scores at time one, and in orange bar indicates the scores at time two. So compared to time one, there is a decrease in depression and anxiety, and also the decrease in stress. And furthermore, there is a decrease in loneliness, but an increase in life satisfaction, maybe a slight increase in self-esteem, and then identification with the groups for health program, and they actually improved multiple group membership. So as we have saying that, identification with a group is really important so that they can retrieve benefits from the group. So through the program, participants were able to identify with the group. And also the program is to encourage participants to join new groups. And after 2 months, it was found that participants are joining more groups than at the commencement of the groups for health program. So it seems that the program is working very well. And this is also another result. So basically, this is a comparison between participants in the groups for health program and then other participants who went through the more traditional program. And they found that blue bar is a groups for health program and orange bar is a control group. And they found that, the depression score was improved far more for uh, groups for health participants than the control group participants. There's a similar pattern in anxiety and stress. And there's a slight improvement in esteem for group for health group than participants in the control group. And also there is a increase in satisfaction. And furthermore, this indicates the changes in identification with groups for health program. And then this indicates the changes in group memberships. I think from time 1 to time 3, I guess. So it indicates how, so from time 1 to time 3, their changes in group identification, how their changes in group identification related to these variables. So let's look at depression as an example. It indicates minus 4.33. So it means that if identification increase, depression score goes down by 4.33. So basically, if you look at the positive or negative sign, it tells whether group identification and depression are positively or negatively related. And then because the sign is negative, it means the higher identification they come to have, the lower depression level they would have at time 3. And same things can be seen for anxiety and stress. But for social anxiety, life satisfaction, self-esteem, there was no relationship between identification with identification. But for loneliness, if they strengthen their identification with the group, then their loneliness goes down. For multiple group memberships, so minus. Okay, for depression, this wasn't significant. So there was no relationship between changing group memberships and depression. But for anxiety, if they belong more groups, then their anxiety levels go down. Same for stress. Social anxiety didn't change, but they felt more life satisfaction. Self-esteem didn't change, but they felt less lonely. So overall, I think if they develop social identification with a group, then their well-being improved. And also, if they belong to multiple groups, if they belong to more groups, then their well-being also improved. Okay, so it seems that groups for health program worked. Furthermore, they also looked at acceptability and feasibility, and many people completed the program, meaning that the retention rate was low, and many people enjoyed and learned from the program and perceived it useful for their future. And the facilitators also evaluated the program highly and showed the intention to recommend the program, and the facilitators reasonably adhered to the manual. So it means that, that was easy to implement the program. Okay, so throughout this course, I have talking about how belonging to groups is important, and then There are several studies showing that groups can be provided. So if participants are provided with groups, then their well-being actually improved. And that kind of studies can be practiced in reality. So the authors of the textbook developed groups for health program, and they found that if participants went through the program, then they strengthened their identification with the group, and then also they improved multiple group membership, these variables were positively related with their well-being. Okay. So as a conclusion, you know, in I guess chapter 2 or somewhere I talked about the 10 tips for better health from biological model and social model. And here is social identity tips for better health. If you feel socially isolated, try to join a group. If you can, join more groups. So, it's important to develop identification with a group. But if you rely solely on one group, then it could be also a source of problem. So try to join as many groups as you could be. And try to hold on to positive group memberships, especially if you are going through a challenging time. You cannot really belong to any groups, but it's always beneficial if you belong to positive groups. And positivity, or I mean, the benefits of groups is especially salient, apparent when you go through a challenging time because, groups can help you to receive and feel supported from others. If you lose membership in an important group, seek out a new one. You can always seek out groups that you can join. Losing one group is not the end of the whole world. There are still many groups out there, so try to find a group that you can join now. Invest in groups that are important to you and in groups by which you are valued. You shouldn't be always try to get from groups, but you should also try to contribute to groups and try to contribute to groups that value you. You know, not try not to contribute groups that does not uh, see the importance in yourself. You know, try to be in a group that you are valued. Okay. Be wary of groups that make unhealthy choices. So again, this is kind of related to the third point, but basically belonging to any groups is not always good. Maybe if you feel that your groups are not making really healthy choices, then you may want to think about leaving the group. Get support from your groups, but also give support to others in your groups. This is similar to the fifth one. Recognize that it can sometimes be healthy to try to leave disadvantaged and stigmatized groups, whereas at other times it can also be healthy to stay. So you can remember the study with Black people. You know, leaving Black community may be good for them to kind of to improve their social status in society. But leaving the group could also mean that they will lose social support they used to have. So there are both positive and negative consequences of leaving groups. So I think it's, after all, maybe as long as you are getting and giving something positive to the groups and from the groups, then you may want to stay there, but try to reduce the uh, reliance, dependence on each group. In other words, try to join many groups so that the impact you get from one group would be relatively small. Okay. Challenge the stigma and disadvantage that produce health inequality. So, after all, belonging to groups is not always a matter of individuals, but there is something that needs to be changed as a society, as a whole society. So, it's not only about how people think and how people behave, but there are social barriers that make individuals behave only in certain ways. And such inequality needs to be fixed. If you experience health problems, seek professional help, ideally from a source with which you identify. So I think the purpose of this course was to democratizing intervention. So, this course really tells how belonging to groups is important. And belonging to a group is something people can do. Although there are some social inequality out there, and then some social inequalities make people difficult to belong to groups, but still, belonging to groups is possible for everyone. Should be possible for everyone. So instead of some interventions that only professionals can perform, I mean, professional help is all, of course, good, but that is maybe something when people have people already have illness, mental illness. But belonging to groups help people not to develop mental illness. So this chapter ends with this sentence. This chapter and indeed this book as a whole should be understood as an invitation for you to contribute to that effort so that you not only read about social cures but also help to unlock them yourself. So I hope that through this course you learn the importance of groups, and then I hope you learn what kind of groups may be helpful and beneficial for your health. And also I hope you are more motivated to help others to join groups so that they would also enjoy benefits of belonging to groups. I hope this course helps you to be a bit healthy and a bit happier than before taking this course. Okay, this is the end of 13th class and end of the course. Thank you very much.